Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to have such a great discussion. So please join me in welcoming Margie Oleson to our program today. Welcome, Margie. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
We're going to have a great time. So let me tell people just a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this. So Dr. Margie Oleson, she has a doctorate in education, helps leaders crush their goals with better clarity and alignment among teams. As the founder and CEO of Oleson Consulting, she is a dynamic speaker and leadership expert who shares knowledge from her education and decades of experience in corporate America from a variety of industries and companies, including American Family Insurance, Ameriprise, Cargill, I always say that one wrong, Catholic Charities, Ecolab, Securian Financial, St. Jude Medical, Target headquarters, UCare, Lockheed Martin, and more. Leaders aren't set up to develop or adopt the right leadership skills and behaviors. They're often left to make it up as they go, and which means most learn from past leaders who are also just making it up. So Dr. Oleson helps leaders develop the right leadership capabilities to grow and maintain high-performing teams, which is the single greatest strategic advantage for any organization. So again, Margie, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, I always like to know a little bit more about my guests. So tell us how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Well, if we go all the way back, I'm the youngest of four in a family that moved just about every year.
Okay.
Lots of chaos, lots of difficulty, lots of challenges. And so that really prepared me for thinking and wanting people to be doing well together. I always kind of see people in groups and then individuals within those groups. And then I started working when I was 14. And so organization after organization, company after company. I just thought layoffs were normal. I thought firings were normal. And I just assumed that when you have that many people together, it's just really hard. It's just really hard to, they're doing the best they can and they're actually doing great. It's amazing they do it at all. When later in life, I earned a master's degree in organizational management. And I was kind of interested in the science as well as the art of organization. So after a while, I went on and earned my doctorate in organization development. So in our doctoral program, we spent 4 years in coursework. And in that 4 years, I learned that we know what we need to know. And that was, at that time, 30 years of research that was settled. It's been more than 40. And I was really interested in, if we know what we know, if we know how to help a leader learn to lead, if we know how to help a team develop and be high performing, if we know how the whole organization can run better, why don't they? And by this time, I'd had so many different organizational experiences because I live in an area with many Fortune 500 headquarters and have been remote. And so all different types of industries, all different types of sizes, all different types of locations and cultures, and they all share the same issues. They really do share the same issues. So I did my dissertation to answer the question, what the heck? Why do we struggle? And the answer is, it's not magic. Just because you read something or hear something or have a class in 2 days or even over a year doesn't mean that you're executing it. And so I embarked on a journey to help, because implementation effectively is my passion anyway. It is not enough to sit around in a room and have a great plan. Let's say you're going to plan a vacation or you're going to start a new business. Sitting around and planning can feel really fun, can feel like possibilities, can feel like, oh, this is going to be great. It's the implementation that I seem to have a lot of passion around. And so then I developed my own way of helping organizations with their leadership and their teams and the whole organization.
Great. I love that. So many things to discuss. I think one of the first things is that most companies, many companies, some companies, a lot of companies don't even give somebody leadership training. I remember long ago when I was in corporate America and was, promoted to be the head of the department. I had several people that reported to me. I was in my late 20s, but I had never been in charge. I'm an only child, right? So I'd never even been in charge of siblings. But I'd only ever been a team member or an independent person, so department of one, right? So all of a sudden I had to manage people and budgets and all of these things that I had no clue about, in addition to actually doing the work. And anybody I've ever talked to, they pretty much said the same thing: is we just do the sink or swim type of thing. And unfortunately, so many people sink.
And bring a lot of people with them,
right.
because they're the ones in charge.
Right. Yeah.
And what I find is that companies will spend time teaching you the numbers and the program, the software for the budget. They'll teach you the process for how the decisions are made and what deadlines you have. They'll teach you how to fill a position. What's HR going to do? What does this particular schedule do? How does it work with you? Because they feel more comfortable with that because it's concrete. So every leadership level above you also did not learn how to be a leader.
Right.
And the truth is, what I find when I talk to clients and potential clients, they don't want to talk about it. They don't even realize, they think they're the only ones. And when they hear about a leader or a company that's being lauded in the news or put out this great book or article, they assume that they've got it all worked out and it's just this one person. No, that leader that's writing, they don't have it worked out either. The greatest ROI, the greatest strategic advantage is how to manage your biggest and most costly resource, and that is your people. And the information's there, and it's doable, and leaders don't realize it, so they kind of keep it hidden. It's a secret, and it is. Or there was a time when we did more leadership development, but I've participated in programs like that, and it really was more of a systems view. Get around to the different departments in the organization. Get around to different locations. Meet people from other departments. And yes, that is very important. Systems view, very important. But at work, we're not talking about behavior. We're not talking about communications. Anybody that still has a recurring meeting on their schedule that is not working for them and hasn't figured out how to end
it's our 9 a.m. Monday meeting
is not. They don't even think it's possible. So one of the reasons I do keynotes is not to rev people up and get them inspired, but to actually tell them, no, you really can do this. It's just that you haven't, and your leader hasn't, and your leader's leader hasn't. And so my dissertation came up with 5 very important things that teams need to have. And one of the aspects was, it's going to be about a year and a half that you can be year to a year and a half that you can be a high performing team in the environment that you're in without anybody else also being high performing. But technically, at some point, you're going to change. Your boss is going to change. You're going to need funding for something, and you're not going to get it if you keep on that track. So for a little while, you can be high performing in the bubble that you're in. But after a while, if it doesn't start at the top, if it doesn't cascade down, if leaders are not leading with these principles that are time tested, they're not even rocket science. They're not even complicated. But they're not easy because they require harder conversations and they require taking a little bit more time. And some leaders, they think they're getting promoted enough so they can promote up and out of the people work. But the truth is, your number one work as a leader is people work. And it's boring and it's hard and it's frustrating and it's gray. And it's the greatest money maker or client delivery opportunity you have in your business.
Right. And you mentioned that it's gray. And that was definitely my experience when I was, the official leader. Having to deal with people's personalities and pride, all these things. I mean, I had one employee who used the corporate card for personal use. That was fun. And I managed to make sure they did not get fired. And because I said, for one thing, we won't get our money back. Let's figure out a way that we can get paid back. And it was several $1,000s. I mean, it was, it was not malicious. It was one of those started out little, grew type of thing. But this person was also a good friend. Mm. And that, I think, is one of the harder things, right? When you're a leader and you're having to tell somebody who you're a friend with, you have screwed up. And then one time I had to fire somebody. Oh, that was not fun. Even
That's
though
never fun, well, even if it's for a really good reason.
I mean, it was company wide, you will reduce your budget by X. We've heard that recently, right? And it was basically last in, first out. But she knew that, she understood that until the very last day. And then, everything that she had been feeling bubbled up. But yeah, they don't, they, like you said, here's how you do a budget. Here's how you request more pencils. Here's how you do this and that, but not how do you deal with people.
No. And for something like firing or something like a great opportunity, like you're growing and everybody's got too much work to do, or we're living in a world that has a lot of instability, disruption, maybe even opportunities. The problems that organizations are having, remote, hybrid, supply chain issues, they're not getting to solve them for themselves because they've developed all of these habits and all of these structures and strictures. They are constraining themselves on this treadmill that they're on. Right. So it's the rat race, and they think, and that's really the only option. And the truth is, when you invest time and energy and are really clear, especially when you start at the top and cascade it down, when you're really clear that behavior is one of the aspects that's going to help us be successful, communication is one of the aspects that's going to help us be successful. When you put your time and investment into that and step away from the rat race, what you actually do over a short period of time is free up time to solve some of those issues, free up time to enter new markets or greet new clients or to think about problem solving. You can have the same, companies can have the same problems for years. They literally, kind of like at home. I'm not judging them because this is what we do at home.
But this is the way we've always loaded the dishwasher.
Because we never have time. And I talk to leaders. One of the first things we do is change their meetings, because I talk to leaders and they have meetings all day. And I promise you, we can get in there and dig and look a little bit, but I promise you, they're not getting what they need out of almost all of those meetings. Meanwhile, you've got leaders who are burnt out, and you've got leaders who are bored, and you've got leaders who are sad, and they are lonely. Leadership does not have to be lonely. Leadership is it's the network that the organization, let's say you have 100 people and you have, let's say, 14 leaders. So you set up that network of leaders so that you don't have to talk to every single of those 100 people every time there's something that you have a question for, or you have an idea for, or you have a policy for. The 14 people are your network. That doesn't mean they're on their own. That doesn't mean that they're neglected. That doesn't mean that they come in the door knowing how to do that. And so when we focus on the short list of things that a leader really does know how to need to do to be able to lead and to lead a team, which is, again, art and science, team development, that's all about dynamics and communication. But again, not rocket science. But if you haven't been trained on what actually makes a team effective and what can you do as a leader, you might as well think it's 100 things. You might as well think it's beyond your capabilities. Or you might think they should just do what I say when I send them an email. And the brain doesn't work that way. They're not getting up in the morning resisting on purpose. Their brain loves autopilot and loves status quo. And so if you send them an email, the brain's going to go, yeah, I know, we know about emails, and just keep on going. It's when you build in the marketing adages 7 times 7 ways, and you lead with the brain in mind and how it operates. And leaders don't know that. So they've got all these people and they think people are just not appreciating how hard it is for them to lead. And they don't realize that the person's body is just doing what it does. So we teach leaders and we help leaders so that they can lead. And some companies can spend a lot of money on leadership development, and you can have great training, but if you don't set up shop differently, It's that thing where you come out of the classroom and it evaporates, and then after several weeks, it's gone.
Right.
And so you might have brought in a consultant and charged a whole bunch of money, and they give you a whole bunch of things, and they leave and nothing changes.
Right.
And you're mad at them. You're actually mad at them.
Right.
Why did I
they
pay
wasted
them?
our time.
Yep. When the truth is, implementation and then making it stick is not in a week.
Right.
And but again, that's not art. That's not rocket science either. There is an art and a science to how do you take something that you're changing and then how do you turn it into the longer term? You might hear adages about how to do that, but the truth is it depends on what it is. And some things you can make a change in and they will just change. And other things you're going to have to go a little deeper. This is a really stubborn change. For example, if you're having issues with, let's say, a particular meeting, maybe one of your issues is that you have politics in the organization and you cannot uninvite someone. You cannot just, so the first thing we do is set up your meeting so that you're following Lencioni's meetings platform where the meeting has the purpose and it depends on who's there. You always only want to meet when you've got the right people there and nobody else. And so if you've got politics going on and you have someone that you cannot leave out of a meeting, that means that you're not being effective in terms of behavior. And you're not doing leadership the way it's designed. So if you can't be open and honest, and that's why it's more important that it starts at the top, because a person at a director level is not going to tell a VP or a senior VP, get the heck out of my meeting today. But if they're in that meeting, you're only just placating them, and you're going to have to get out of that meeting and do the meeting after the meeting. And all of that, when an individual is working for an organization that relies on meetings after the meetings and relies on recurring meetings all day long, and you don't get anything done in those, and they're not even on camera, they're remote and they're off camera, and somebody is trying to multitask. If your company operates that way, you don't feel as good. And those leaders, that is the loneliness, that is the boredom. When you can start putting together the kind of effective organizational principles. Again, every book that you can pick up from your favorite bookstore about leadership and teams, it's all based on the same principles. Nobody has said anything new in 40 plus years, but it's in the implementation. And so you want to get help with that.
Right. And it takes buy-in at the top.
Yes.
Like you said, your department might be able to do, but you're not operating in a vacuum. So, you might say, okay, our department is only going to have X meeting once a week.
Yeah.
But then everybody else, gets in there. It's funny. I've been studying time management for another project that I'm working on. And which of course, time management is the biggest bugaboo for everybody. Right. And meetings really are the worst thing. But one of the things that I read, and I thought, now that's very interesting, and it's, one of these people who we say are an effective leader, which I'm like, never quite sure how that's determined, right? But and it happens to be a woman. So I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Always has meetings walking. And, and she said, okay, so first of all,
Marcy Rader.
It might
Is that her name?
It might be. And, now obviously, there's times where you're going to have a sit down meeting and things like that. But the walking meeting, first of all, limits the number of people who can participate, right? If there's more than about 3 people in the chain of people walking along, the people in the back don't know what's going on, and you're going to drop them off anyway. And it's probably going to really limit the time. You can only walk for so long, and I really like that concept. And what she says is, okay, we're going to spend 10 minutes and we will talk about X. And that's all they do. If you need to talk about Y and Z, then you have to schedule another meeting. But I thought, and so not only is she, having more effective meetings, everybody's getting exercise. I mean, all sorts of things. But I love that concept. But, that is, again, only going to work if everybody buys into it.
It does. And it also takes practice. And if your leaders aren't doing it, there was a CEO one time that leaned over to Patrick Lencioni. If you're familiar with the 5 dysfunctions of a team, he leads the table group, and he's had many other books since then. And a CEO leaned over to him and said, why do I have to communicate? I hire people for that.
Right.
And it's this for the same reason that the adult in the household can't just sit back and not ever say anything and everybody around them. And so what you want to do is make it so that the leaders really appreciate the value. Why are you doing this? And something as simple as meetings, all it takes is a little while. And my clients say, I would never go back. I was doing some work for Cargill, and I was presenting to leaders and my piece on how to do meetings. And one of the people stood up and said, and I just want to tell you, I've been working with Margie for several months. This is exactly how she does her meetings.
I love it.
And I don't spend any more money than anybody else. I don't take any more time, actually less time. I just don't have us waste time in meetings. And also you need to have the right people there, and you need to have the right conversations. So following the format for, is it a strategic conversation? Is it a working conversation? If it's tactical, then those are different people.
Right.
And if you invite the SVP, because you don't know how to uninvite them.
Right. Because everybody
they're
does.
very, and some of them can be very tactical. They're not only strategic. Sometimes they're very tactical. And you're having a strategy meeting, they're going to bring up a tactic and 20 minutes can go by. So A, you didn't even get to do diligence to that tactic. And B, you missed the piece about the strategy. And what happens, the reason why you want to have effective meetings is because it's as if you're having things come down the line on the conveyor belt, let's say a light bulb, and they're all different. You're not getting what you said you were going to get. You don't have the same light bulb. So if you are going to meetings and you're not getting what you need out of them, you want to be asking yourself, why do I continue to do it this way? And so I think people and clients bear this out. They just assume that they inherit the culture. They inherit
this is
the
the
ways
way
of
we've
doing
always
things.
done it.
And if you've ever heard the adage, it is nearly impossible to change culture. And I find that to not be true. I actually used to say that, and now I have to, no, actually culture is your combination of how you lead.
Right.
So it's what you say, and it's what you do, and it's what your policies are, and it's what you, what kind of clothing is around, and what is on the walls. Or if, I work with a client and everybody's off camera all the time. That is a culture piece that if you change that and we're on camera and in person more often, your culture would change.
Right.
But you don't have to go after the culture. You don't have to try to deal with these cultural forces that are in the air at all times. You change how you lead and the culture changes.
Right. And the communicating is, I think, the key to it. Yes. Say everybody's been, working remotely, nobody has their cameras on, you're never quite sure if they're there or not, all those things. And then you think, okay, everybody's going to be required to have their cameras on. You need to explain why.
Yes.
Because I've done corporate communications my entire career. And I always tell the people higher up, when they don't want to give explanations, you need to understand, if you don't explain it, people will make it up. And it's almost never in a positive way. And their brain
is just going to repeat what they already knew.
Yeah. And then it becomes fact, right? Yes. Yeah. And so you might tell me, okay, we have to do our meetings on camera and nothing more. And my little brain goes, they don't trust that I'm there. That means they don't trust me to do this. Oh, they don't trust me. That means they don't trust Sue either. I mean, and our little brains are, just these little chipmunks going boogity, 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 boogity. When all you needed to say was, hey, it helps us to actually be able to see people's faces during the meeting, or whatever you want to say, but give them a reason. Because
so you can talk about, there's an energetic exchange, by the way, to being in person. So that really is important.
Oh, yes.
You can tell them that in a conference room with 12 people, if they're doing a math quiz and they're not sharing information, they will do better being in person than if they were doing it separately, individually. And then they didn't cheat. They didn't share. There's an energetic exchange. When you're on camera, one of the benefits is people are in meetings all day. They feel like they have no choice but to multitask.
Right.
And so if you're on camera, you can't do that. So peel back the layers of that onion. Do the 5 whys. Are they off camera so they can make soup? Are they off camera so they can have the TV on? What if it's because they're multitasking because your meetings are ineffective?
Maybe
and
they're
just
doing
trying to do
another
their
job
well.
at the same time.
The other thing, and this is where it gets a lot more human and psychological, people say, please don't have me come back into the office again. I don't want to sit on the freeway. I don't want to pay for clothes and dry cleaning. I don't want to have time away from my household. The problem with that, and this is where leadership comes in, there is something that happens when you're together. So, and if I'm an individual and I can be on off camera 8 hours a day in meetings, and that's all I do, and I probably get some work done, around that. And I didn't have to shower, and I just went right from, morning,
no shoes,
brushing
no
my
shoes.
It's actually a better life when they're engaged in person with other people.
Right.
So what I recommend to companies, but again, you can do this when you've put out some of your fires that you're always fighting because they're the same ones. When you step back and take an investment in learning how to develop leaders and develop highly effective teams, you have time to have the conversations about what does hybrid mean, or what does in person once a quarter mean. You can think about all that. I was in a presentation I heard the presentation of the founder of Build-A-Bear. And she talks about how if they had been remote, her company would have never come to where it is today. Because number one, the whole development of it and the whole standing of it up initially was very improcessed, very imperfect, very gray. But then they morphed. They had these different iterations, major changes as a company. And those happened sitting around at the office.
Right.
Those happened at lunch. Those happened over a cup of coffee. And they didn't plan for that. They didn't say, let's go have a cup of coffee and talk about this strategy. They would be having a cup of coffee.
Right. And somebody,
and then somebody, and 2 years later, you've completely changed your business model.
Right.
For the better. And now you're successful in a different way.
Right.
And so again, art and science, we can say, well, we don't have any choice. Leaders, I promise you right now, leaders, whoever you have on your staff, there is genius, wisdom, intuition, problem solving that you're not tapping into.
Right. You have no idea it exists.
No, the same people are doing this talking at every meeting, which is why you don't want to have those meetings. And you're not hearing from the people who are trying to keep their head down. You're also not hearing from the people who probably aren't you're not hearing in the way that you could or should, hearing from the people that maybe aren't being talented and they're not contributing. But you got your day all full with fires that they're kind of hiding. They're hiding in the wilderness because you're not even having real conversations about what is needed and how it's going because you don't have time.
Right. Because you have 19 meetings you've got to go to.
And you have 27 priorities. And by the way, nobody does. You have 27 priorities on paper. You're probably operating on 4. So why don't you, as a leadership group, plan for that, decide it together and implement together? I can tell you, I've been in many situations or read many different case studies where imagine like a tiger team or a project team goes off of their day-to-day roles. And for a year and a half, 2 years, they're going to do something special. They're going to, so you've got 12 people and they're off eating terrible pizza, working 14 hours a day, going to different locations, working at all hours. They don't know that this is going to come to be. And over a year and a half, it all comes together and their time in this project has come to an end. And then many times companies will have a presentation. So they'll have this group do a presentation for the company. They'll show what they've done. They'll show what the progress is. They'll show what the deliverables were, what the outcomes were. And almost to a person, the people on stage are crying. And after a while, I was thinking, what are they crying about?
What the heck is going on with these folks?
They don't want it to end.
Right.
Because it's the first time in their entire careers, maybe, where kind of like a surgical team, everybody understands the urgency. Everybody knows what everybody's supposed to do. Everybody knows what the goals are, and everybody's working together in the way that they bring what they bring to the table. If you're not and that's how we work with clients to get them to that point. Because if you're not doing that on your team right now, you're probably thinking it's not possible. It absolutely is possible and quite doable. So there they are crying because this opportunity that they had, it wasn't that it was the thing, that particular software or that particular particular location, relocation plan. It was that they figured out how to be an organization and how to perform well together. And each person got to come to the table with their own zones
they
of
were
genius.
Valued.
You have that option right now today with everyone that reports to you, and every leader in the company has that option. They just don't know it. They're not talking about it. They don't realize somebody else succeeded and solved this, checked it off the list. You don't have to keep recreating the wheel. Somebody already did. You can follow what they learned, the principles and the practice, and make that high performing individual contributing team experience normal.
Right. And if you've got somebody that is not contributing for whatever reason, then that is a different issue. But you need to not have them on the team, as hard as that might be. Because we talk about, the one ship rises, everybody rises. Well, when one person is sinking a project, everybody sinks.
And people know it. People know it. It's kind of like anybody who has siblings. It's really hard, or a cousins. It's really hard when someone gets away with something. In a team, you have people that they see things, they might even feel things and not even tell themselves that. But if somebody's getting away with something, or if somebody is over contributing and somebody is way under contributing, if you're not having those conversations, it really does. It gets in the way. It poisons the well. And then your high talent, they're the first ones to go because they know they can.
Right. And your high talent might also be the issue, because maybe they're the people who, and it was funny. I was having this discussion with somebody earlier today, the person who knows how it should be done and is just going to take over and do it. Okay, maybe.
Well, what does that help tomorrow? How does that help tomorrow? And when you have a leader that's doing the work of the people on the team, how do the people on the team feel good? And you are then maybe able to hide if you're someone who is underperforming. I once worked, a client was a headquarters for an insurance company, and I was face to face a couple of times with one of their people that was just so verbally abusive, but they were such a savant, such a genius in their little technical part of the world. And they retained that person because they thought they couldn't do without them. They are not counting the beans, the cost of having that person stay and what that does there and having the other people leave. And it is scarcity thinking to go down that rabbit hole where, well, I have to keep them. Like they're the only option. Actually, what happens when you start moving through and moving people off the team or out of the organization who are low performers or aren't a good fit, you all of a sudden see stars start to rise. They've been there all along, but the environment wasn't set for them to just be who they are and do what they need to do. And when you're so set up with all of that rat race and all of those fires and all of those meetings all day long, you are not taking the time to do the 5-6 things that you need to do to lead your people and to make sure that they're doing what they need to do and that they're doing okay. So you're missing a lot of information and then relying on a very expensive performance management software, hardware that isn't telling you anything that you need to know. And it's not telling the individual. It's almost like, would I really, if there's a person in my life who's important to me, would I wait a year to tell them what's working well and what is not going well? No, you should have, there should be no surprises.
For one thing, they're going to be gone.
Surprises.
They will be gone.
Or they're going to stay and it's not going to be going well. Don't stay. But they would not know that it's not, how would they know that it's not going well?
Right. And these are not performance reviews. These are not all of those ugly, horrible, awful things that I'm so glad I don't have to do anymore. But the other word, and we toss this around a lot, empowering. And I had a guest on, and I've got to go back and remember who this person was because he was absolutely fabulous. He owns a company, and it's a large company, thousands of employees. And he said he realized the day he realized his company and he was successful was when he went on a 2-week vacation and nobody called him or emailed him or did. And of course, we're all thinking, but he trusted that everything would go on without him. Now, does that mean he's not needed? No. But what it meant was he had hired the right people
Yes.
and given
and set
them
up the right systems, the right
yes.
structures, the right processes.
Right. Yeah. And they knew, okay, even if we screw up, it's okay. I'm in Atlanta, the home of, as like Minneapolis, lots of headquarters. And of course, one of the big ones down here is Chick-fil-A. And they very much have the empowering model, which, considering they're dealing with 16 and 17-year-olds in a lot of cases. But if you go up and say, I want one chicken nugget, they sell you one chicken nugget.
Nice.
And they make the decision to do that. They know that, and they charge like a quarter or something like that. I mean, it's not that this is some grandiose thing that's not been done, but they know they can do it, and they know they're not going to get in trouble. And obviously most people are never going to do things like that. But when we know that our employees can make those decisions, and like I said, even if it's wrong, okay, unless the world ends or somebody dies, it can be fixed, and so we all have to kind of keep that in mind is, okay, so it didn't go the way we wanted. Why not? Let's not repeat the mistakes. But we have to do that in a way that still encourages people to say, okay, we're going to keep going. I mean, it's not the blame game and nobody's ever going to put their head up again. We all just, need to keep going and thinking, okay, what's next? And what did we learn from this?
And one of the benefits of, there's always benefits of horrible things. It's really weird that way. But one of the benefits coming out of the global pandemic is, for the first time in my entire career, people were starting to talk about feelings at work. Nobody was talking about that before, except in hushed tones or in what they thought were safe spaces. So great. People have now accepted more readily that when you come to work, you bring your whole human self.
Right.
And you can't hand to somebody empowerment. You have to do it
right
as a leader. And that has a short list of things that are required in order for having an environment of empowerment. And one of them is that people really need to be clear. What are my leaders' goals? How do I fit into that? What are my goals? Do I have what I need to do that? And what does my leader think how does my leader think I'm doing? And that conversation is every week. How does my leader think? Not, okay, today I'm going to say again. No, it's that you're just always in communication. There's no surprises. It's not a review. It's a two-way conversation that starts with always, here's our goals. Here's your goals. Do you have what you need? How is it going? And you have metrics and you're doing that. When a person develops that confidence and that clarity and that structure, and they know week after week that they're going to keep coming back and having the conversation with their leader about what is needed and how it's going, they stop hiding. But they also they can then find out, well, how empowered am I?
Right.
What are the policies? What can I answer to? What can I represent? And when you're having those kinds of real conversations, I wouldn't want another day of work without those conversations. I would never work in an organization again where we're not having real conversations. And when you're having those conversations, you have made the company so much more agile. And now you can be faster. It saves so much time.
Right.
So now you can be faster. So you can have failure. You can have human. You can have try it. Because if you don't, you're waiting too long in the market, or you're not serving enough clients when you could without much more heartache or much more effort. So the idea that you're having real conversations just cuts right through so much wasted time, energy, and feelings. And when you recognize that your people have feelings, which they do, and by the way, so do you.
Right.
So the leader who thinks they don't have feelings, fortunately, I think we've gotten up to the point where we don't at least shut it completely down when we say leaders have feelings. They do. Your feelings actually are getting in the way of you developing your leadership because you're hiding them.
Right.
Or you're stuffing them. It's that if you know the model of the iceberg and the water line, one of the ways to become an effective leader is, well, go to therapy, learn the art and science of leadership. And that the model of that iceberg and the water line is the iceberg is showing what is visible in the exterior about you, even to yourself.
Right.
So if you have a lot of emotions that
Mm-hmm.
are buried, if you have trauma,
Mm-hmm.
if you have certain beliefs that get in the way
Mm-hmm.
that don't even fit the
Mm-hmm.
values of the company, if you have 10 bad experiences with your last 10
Mm-hmm.
leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and that's underneath the waterline and you're trying to keep that hidden,
Right.
that, by the way, you're not hiding it very well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just coming out in you don't know how to fix your meetings,
Mm-hmm.
or you're taking too much time
Yeah.
and doing all the talking, or you don't have the
Mm-hmm.
courage to have a conversation with
Mm-hmm.
an
Mm-hmm.
employee that needs to be had,
Mm-hmm.
or you're not firing somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Because all that junk down
Mm-hmm.
below is it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
get airtime, it doesn't get
Mm-hmm.
processed, and humans need to do
Mm-hmm.
that in order to get it up and out. So the goal, one of the goals for developing leadership acumen
Mm-hmm.
is to get that water line to go down.
Right. Right.
Not I come to work and I tell all my, my
Yeah.
personal stories.
Mm-hmm.
Not I come to work and I
Mm-hmm.
cry all the time. No, it's not like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
boundaries. You still have
Mm-hmm.
guardrails,
Mm-hmm.
but you want to learn for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What is my baggage?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I get angry
Mm-hmm.
when I hear this particular thing in a
Mm-hmm.
meeting, or I have this particular situation happen with my boss or my
Mm-hmm.
team or my direct report?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I have this sort of knee-jerk
Right.
reaction? Well,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? It's not usually anything about
Mm-hmm.
them. It's
Mm-hmm.
not usually anything about your clients or your business or the financial.
Mm-hmm.
It's something inside,
Mm-hmm.
and you can take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
Not tomorrow.
Right. Right.
Get on a
Yeah.
journey. You can take
Mm-hmm.
care of that. And the more you do self-reflection,
Mm-hmm.
meditation,
Yeah.
walking,
Acknowledge those
talking,
things are
and
there. Mm-hmm.
talking to other leaders, be in a
Mm-hmm.
mastermind group with
Mm-hmm.
other leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and tell your stuff. Tell
Right.
your stories that you
Mm-hmm.
can't talk about at work because you feel like you
Mm-hmm.
want to have boundaries, but
Mm-hmm.
tell your stuff to the four
Mm-hmm.
other people. That water line goes farther
Mm-hmm.
and farther and farther
Mm-hmm.
down. And pretty soon leaders are less lonely.
Mm-hmm.
They are less burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
They are much more their ability to learn. As a
Mm-hmm.
leader, you have to be able to continuously learn. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this new person with this credit card. Oh, this new person who has this situation, or we're doing this totally different market.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be in a
Mm-hmm.
spirit of learning, and you can do that
Mm-hmm.
when you've waded through and
Right.
released some
Mm-hmm.
of the baggage,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just more comfortable being open with your peers and your leaders on what's happening, what is needed, and how can it be better.
Right. And that stuff is always going to be there. I mean,
Yes.
it is like an iceberg. I mean, if you don't have that bottom stuff, it sinks. But yeah, you have to, like you said, maybe it was that you had a boss.
Yes.
Maybe it was your first boss. Your first boss always yelled at you.
Yes.
So somehow it got ingrained in your brain that to get people's attention, you had to yell.
Yes.
And, first of all, that should never happen. But, yeah, there are times when they run, danger, okay, things like that, but yeah, same thing with, okay, if you, like I had a boss who never, ever came to work on time. So it didn't take very long for me to go, ooh, I don't have to come in on time either. As long as I got there before, and there were perfectly valid reasons. I mean, I think childcare was probably what the reason was, but I didn't know that, back to communication.
And the person yelling, so that person, that boss before that was a yeller, we can probably guess that they had an adult in their childhood that
who
yelled
at them. Right. Yeah.
So that's not the end of the story. Okay. So people yelled at me. So that's what I learned. And there's things we can do about it. There are 100 books there, but it goes back to some of the basics, which is there's a lot of really good ways to develop emotional intelligence. The single greatest asset for a leader is emotional intelligence. And I define emotional intelligence as I know how I am being received in what I'm saying and doing. And I know that by what others are saying and doing, I understand how I'm receiving it. So it really is the exchange of the human experience. And it doesn't mean I never get angry. It doesn't mean that I am, or that I'm a pushover. It means that I am seeing things I'm seeing conversations and interactions and whole developments over, let's say, a couple of months for a company as all these little moments of the human experience. And some people don't have high emotional intelligence. You can learn it. Without it, you really you're forgetting that you're dealing with people. And so emotional intelligence is really about understanding how to interact and what is going on in a situation where there's more than one person. There's a lot going on. Now get it up to 10. If you don't have that, you either have a great future as an individual contributor where you're much more with numbers or you're much more with machines. But if you want to be a high performing leader, which by the way is where all the problems get solved and all the money gets made and all the clients get helped. It's a great place. If you want to do that, you want to increase your emotional intelligence, and you can do that through a variety of ways, and none of it is inaccessible.
Right. And let's be honest, there are some people who do not want to be a leader. And in particular, maybe they don't want to manage people. Yes. All of those things. Well, that's their choice.
Yes.
And that's fine. And we need those people.
Yes, we do.
But, it is one of those things where it's not, like you said, it can all be learned and unlearned, right? We have to unlearn the bad things. But we all are leaders to some degree. Maybe we're leaders at home. Maybe we're leaders in our church. The dogs and the cats need somebody to tell them what to do. I mean, whatever it is. And so we all kind of have those skills, but it is in how they are expressed.
And if you don't want to be a leader, it may be because you don't know how.
Right.
And they're scary. And the leaders you've had don't do it well. Why would anybody want to do that?
I know.
The world is a better place. I can just go out on a limb and say the world is a better place when everybody learns more emotional intelligence and more strategies for how to be an effective leader. And each leader is different. So you can learn the short list of the principles and the behaviors, but you can have it show up differently for you. So they used to say is an extrovert a better leader than an introvert? Actually, no. If you're familiar with DISC in the 4 quadrants, is one quadrant a better leader than the other? No. Myers-Briggs, are there certain types that lend themselves? Now, you'll have people say, oh, the data shows certain types are much better. That's actually not true. You
can make data say whatever you want data to say.
You can. And how are you in touch with who you are as an introvert or an extrovert? As and then you build on that to add the pieces that tell you how to be a leader. And so it's less about a personality or even a style, and it's just more about knowing the things and then personalizing them based on. So that's why as that water line goes down, it's because the first thing you're doing is learning more about yourself. It is amazing to realize that the people in your world, you look around, some of them, they actually don't know themselves. They might do all the talking. They might always be present. They might be really smart. They might be really accomplished, have acquired a lot of assets, resources. They don't know themselves at all. And you have some people that are so psychic and intuitive and wise that they kind of know everybody. But they don't even tell you that because it's not very popular. But like when I come into a room and there's 10 people, I can read the room instantly.
Right.
Some people don't do that. That's fine.
Yeah. How are they standing? Are they sitting? Who's talking? Who's
But the most important person first for a leader is know yourself.
Yes.
And when you know yourself, that water line starts to go down and it reveals for you the places where you have work to do to become a better leader.
Right. And it's so interesting and so true because and we're not saying there's something wrong with you.
No,
it's that this is just a trait. I mean, I am pretty type A, and I am also, I mentioned it before, the leader who says, well, I'm just going to do it because I'm the only one who knows how to do it right. Maybe it's because I'm an only child, and that was definitely the way my mother was.
Yes.
But when I came to the realization, but I still have to acknowledge that every single time I have to stop and think, stop. Somebody might do it different, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. And more,
the short list of
Mhm.
environments,
Mhm.
cultural environments
Mhm.
in your organization, if you don't have that you're a learning organization, if you've got people
Mhm.
that are just doing the same thing over and
Mhm.
over again, because
Mhm.
that's what they already know how to do for
Mhm.
you, you are missing it. You're
Right.
not even going to
Right.
survive. Or if you
Mhm.
do, nobody's going
Mhm.
to want to be there.
Right.
You're going to think that the
Mhm.
whole, so if you live
Mhm.
on an island that's red, you're going to think the
Mhm.
whole world is red if
Right.
that's all you've
Mhm.
ever seen.
Mhm.
You think that that's how companies
Mhm.
run. No, actually, now, you do have to go through processes to
Mhm.
bring people along and
Mhm.
to teach them. But
Mhm.
again, if you're not telling them week
Mhm.
after week, making sure they have what
Right.
they need, making
Mhm.
sure they
Mhm.
understand the goals, making sure they know that
Mhm.
what you think about
Mhm.
what they're doing.
Mhm.
And the way I'm describing it makes it sound like it's way
Mhm.
more formal than it is.
Mhm.
But you're not having those
Mhm.
conversations at all, except
Right.
for quarterly, mid-year, and
Mhm.
end of year. When they
And then
really
nobody
have
cares.
when
Mhm.
they really have
Mhm.
all that information, they can start to
Mhm.
do more
Mhm.
and take things off your
Right.
off your plate.
Mhm.
And I think that leaders maybe don't realize that that fear is a big driver.
Mhm.
Well, if I don't do it, well, first of
Mhm.
all, if I don't do it, what do I do all day? Because I don't know how to
Right. I
lead
have
and I'd
to
rather do.
justify my existence.
But
Mhm.
but am I going to have to get rid of them if they
Mhm.
don't do it well?
Mhm.
And but yet you're
Mhm.
never ever going to have your company be
Mhm.
the same. Every
Right.
quarter
Mhm.
now, you're going to go through some
Mhm.
changes. Look
Mhm.
at what's happening in the world the last several
Mhm.
years. There's some major
Right. Mhm.
revolution on
Mhm.
an almost timed
Mhm.
schedule.
Mhm.
So you really want people
Mhm.
who just know how to learn.
Mhm.
And if you're not having real
Mhm.
conversations, so let's say you have
Mhm.
employees or leaders
Mhm.
who everyone knows are problem people, and
Mhm.
you just keep them. You're not there. You're
Mhm.
not there. If your
Right.
meetings are terrible or
Mhm.
unproductive, or you have so many,
Mhm.
you're not there.
Mhm.
If
Right.
your talent goes
Mhm.
out the door and
Mhm.
you're wondering why,
Mhm.
you're not there.
Mhm.
And when you get there, and then you have to keep it going. You have to renew
Mhm.
your
Right.
vows and
Right.
keep
Mhm.
it's not, there's no there,
Mhm.
but when you get farther along
Mhm.
into the opportunity
Mhm.
to actually run the organization
Mhm.
in a way that
Right.
you would if you could
Mhm.
start over and
Mhm.
apply these principles, then you find
Mhm.
out it's more fun.
Mhm.
It is so much more effective.
Mhm.
Way more success.
Mhm.
Forbes calls ineffective meetings an $8 billion
Mhm.
problem in the US
Right.
every year.
Mhm.
But you're
Mhm.
not counting those beans because nobody said you should.
Mhm.
I come
Mhm.
in and say, ooh, well, we can count the beans, but first
Mhm.
let's just make the
Mhm.
meetings better.
Mhm. Right.
And then you'll know. You'll
Mhm.
say, oh my gosh, we had no idea
Mhm.
what was available
Mhm.
to us
Mhm.
and how much better we can
Mhm.
perform with just some slight
Right.
tweaks and
Mhm.
some practice
Mhm.
and some
Mhm.
reinforcement.
Right. And it is slight tweaks. If it's a major overhaul, then there's a totally different issue.
Yes.
And so, but yeah, it's about, open communication, knowing ourselves. I mean, like I was complaining to somebody about I was having too many things to do, and
Mm.
where. And this person, God bless her, said, you need to learn the word delegate.
Mm.
And and now here's the trick with that. I have basically taught people that they don't have to do stuff because I will. I'll
Of
just step up
course.
and do it, right?
Of
And
course.
so now when I say, Margie, I trust you to do this, you're like, no. you know?
And Margie, I've done this before, but let's change this. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you, make sure that you know how to do it and you have what
Mhm.
you need. And it's probably not gonna go well right away, but this
Right.
is gonna be a
Mhm.
process and it's fine.
Mhm.
That's what we would do with
Mhm.
a puppy or a
Right.
child.
I
Why
did
do
that
we
with Chat
pretend?
GPT today. I was using Chat GPT and I said, I want to do this. And I said, I need you to write this. You need this. There are these 5 steps I want to include, yada, yada, yada. And then I said to Chat GPT, do you have all the information you need to proceed?
Nice.
Why don't we do that with people?
Right. Ourselves, start with ourselves.
Right.
Do I have what I need? Am
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
equipped to be successful?
Right.
Because we
Mhm.
put so much pressure on
Mhm.
ourselves to be high value,
Mhm.
but do we even stop to
Mhm.
say, I'm
Mhm.
worth having
Right.
what I need to be
Mhm.
successful? And then,
Mhm.
yes, asking others.
Right. Right.
One of the things, so I really am a huge fan of Patrick Lencioni, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
Advantage, his book from 2012,
Mhm.
really does a great job of laying out how to narrow your focus and
Mhm.
prioritize.
Mhm.
But his latest, greatest is, if you haven't heard of it, he developed Working Genius.
Ooh.
And it's been a couple of years, and
Mhm.
it is, so of all the,
Mhm.
DISC and Myers-Briggs and all the different colors assessments. This one for me is by far the most immediately accessible and implementable and has the greatest impact. So he and his wife, who both are smart people and have enough resources to pay the power bill, one day the power went out in their house. And he's looking in the neighborhood and other people had their power on. Neither one had paid the bill. And that was just one of many moments that developed into, and he's a very creative person, developed into him coming up with this working genius model. And the acronym is WIDGET. There are 6 working geniuses, and each of us have 2 geniuses, 2 competencies, which is where a lot of us live, and that is where we actually can burn out, and then 2 frustrations. And once a leader, and so one of the ways to get the water line down is to do assessments, ways of finding out more about yourself. When you go to therapy, you're finding out more about yourself. When you meditate, you're having a chance to connect your wisdom with your conscious mind. So that water line is going down. Another way is when you do assessments like Working Genius, then the leader, water line down, but then the whole team learns that. So for example, I have my entire life, I ask a lot of questions and give a lot of opinions. And I learned in back and forth, sometimes that's positive. Sometimes I learned that's terrible. It's negative. Try to quiet yourself. What a sad thing.
I know. I do that too. I'm like,
yeah. So the WIDGET acronym is wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enabling, and tenacity. And though I'm a wonderer and a discerner, which means I'm asking questions all the time. And well, why do we do it this way? Or well, why can't we have this? Or what is the solution to this problem? And then the inventors, which Patrick Lencioni is an inventor. He was able to come up with this model because he's always ideating, always. And then the discerner, and this is me, says, ugh. And I don't know why I know what I know. I can't explain it to you, but I've got this intuition, and I'll say, oh, I think that's going to work great. Or, oh, what about this? Or, oh, I think you maybe want to tweak this. And then the galvanizers pull people in, and the enablers know how things get done in the organization to make sure they get done. And the tenacity people check it off the list. What happens is most of the time, we're not even aware of what our own geniuses are. And we also have a team, and we don't realize, unless you take the assessment and work with, that 4 of you are you're all inventors. Okay.
And tenacity.
Then meetings follow this approach. So if you're in a tactical meeting where you're doing stuff to get it done, get things off over the finish line, don't invite Margie.
No.
Don't invite the wanderer. Don't invite the inventor.
Because they're going to keep.
Yes, and this is what people have real stories about. The VP just keeps asking questions when someone, if you can get to this point in your culture, says, you know what, this meeting is farther down the line. We are not, or you have those people that are always going to problem solving when you're really just starting the conversation. You want your wanderers and inventors. Now, there's no one leader that has the right combination.
No,
you can be any of those, but you have to know. Pull people in, borrow, bring a consultant in, borrow from a department. This is where your stars really start to rise too, because you have people on your team that maybe all day you want to keep them in that one role because they're so good at it, but they're actually, you didn't know, they get fed.
They don't like
they're in their zone of genius in the other. They may not even realize it. But whenever I work with people on their working genius and they get their results and we talk through that, even I just start to a little tear. I feel so heard and so seen that those questions and opinions were not because I was acting out. It was because my brain just naturally does that. So now how do we time it? How do we sequence it? And this is something that organizations can do without any changes in how you're structured or what your markets are or what you do. This is the how, this is the implementation that everybody always really appreciates.
Oh my gosh, I love it. We could go on forever, right? I mean, this is just so interesting because when you're talking about, I just kept thinking of other things I wanted to ask and talk about. So we just have to have you on again. But yeah, we are almost out of time. And so for people who are going, okay, raising my hand, I need to talk with Margie. How do they find you, and what are the services that you provide?
So I do keynotes, and then I do consulting. And the keynotes, the purpose of the keynote is because people don't know this is possible. And when I talk to a group, I talk in very concrete, very tangible ways, and they realize it is possible for them. So I do keynotes and then consulting. So Oleson, Oleson, the E is silent. Oleson-consulting.com. All of my information is out there, as well as articles and videos on some of what we've been
lots of great
about.
resources.
Yep. And then you can go to Top Team Accelerator, all one word, topteamaccelerator.com. And you can take a team assessment free. You don't even have to share your results with me. As a matter of fact, 3 of you could be at different computers or phones. Take the assessment, and then it'll give you results and show you where you're at with your team on behaviors, on communication, on leadership, and then see if you're answering the same and see what the recommendations are. So you can do that and then go back to the other site, and we can talk about how we can help you.
I love it. I love it. And I think now more than ever, we need all of this. We've heard about the great resignations. Yes. We have no idea what's coming in the next 6 months, 12 months, but we never do, right? Nobody thought that we would have COVID, and all of these things. And so it's the building, right? If we have the good foundation, then everything else can adapt, and leadership is your foundation.
That foundation will help you in everything that happens after that.
Right.
The predicted and the unpredicted.
Right. Well, like I said, we will have you on again because this is such a fascinating discussion. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yeah, I just want you to know that those leaders that you hold in high esteem, or the people in your company that you really want to understand or to be seen by them, they are as lonely or as unclear about how to lead as you are. It's really quite doable, but you don't even have the information in front of you. Once you do, and you work on it for a while, you build it, you practice, and you reinforce, you do literally come to being a much better leader in ways that you hadn't imagined.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having such a fascinating discussion with Dr. Margie Oleson of Oleson Consulting. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.